Say it didn't look like it fucking loaded. Fatebinder, if you have a moment, Barrick stands at attention, his rigid bearing making of him in a moving statue. I know the two of us have clashed on several subjects since the Iron Marshal assigned me to your protection. I hope those disagreements do not weigh too heavily against the request I'm about to make of you. Relax, Barrick. Just tell me what's on your mind. I hope that perhaps the educator would hear my case. I can educate cases in the Archon's stead. This is something you probably want to appeal to a higher power. I have been encased in this. He wraps his gauntlet against the shards of corroded iron and prods that sweep across his chest. Shell, since Kairos' Edict of Storms, made a grave out of old starwort. It occurred in service to the Overlord, and I would ask that the Overlord free me of its burden. I'll happily make your case to the Archon. Thank you, Fatebinder. His salute rings like a poorly cast bell. You know, Barrick, I'm feeling nice today. In spite of all of your bitching, Barrick, it's just bitch with you. I approve, you know? I'll bring this forth in your case. In your stead, I mean. I got you. I eagerly await the Archon's judgment. Damn, he fears the shit out of me. How do I go back to that screen I wanted? There we go. Barrick stares at you through his narrow eye slits, says nothing at all. The only evidence that he still lives is the steam of heavy exhalations that escape the cracks of his helm. You okay in there, Barrick? He continues to stare, unmoving. Though you can't see his face, you get the impression that his mood has darkened even further. The stench of his armor exudes has intensified. Barrick, did you die in the... You mad about something?
You betrayed Graven Ash, the Legion, and our northern country. As far as I'm concerned, you are a traitor to this campaign.
See what I say? Right back to the bitchin'. It was my right as Tunon's Fatebinder to choose a side.
And you chose the savage tearsmen over those who came to guide them with a civilizing hand? You disgust me, Fatebinder.
Alright, listen, I don't think you just fucking remember what Graven Ashes threw like a hissy fit. Oh, it was actually voices through a hissy fit. But then they declared war on each other, so they're babies.
Let us be clear on one point. You have my blade, but my heart belongs to Ash and the North. I am a weapon bound to you only by duty, nothing more.
I mean, alright,
You look as if you have something on your mind. By all means. What can I do for you?
Tell me more about you. I am the line your enemies cannot cross, except when they do. All other details are meaningless, but I suspect you have some thirst for detail, so ask away. Did you seek the trade of war, or did it find you? Both, I suppose. I knew fighting was in my blood, and the disfavored offered me a chance to use my skills to bring peace. Otherwise, I would have wound up some brigand or enforcer to a crooked merchant. Barrick taps his scabbard, looking away in thought. You think Ash and his legion bring peace? That's cute, but it doesn't hold water from where I'm standing, big guy. I've seen them spill blood as much as any chorus gang. You clearly been too busy sacking villages and stealing crops to notice how a proper army conducts war. We sow order, not discord. You two are worse than Ash and the voices. Stop this. Speaking ill of the great general is not wise while I'm earshot, Fatebinder. Hey, boss has a point. Trading jabs is fun, but it's not like it's gonna get us anywhere. May I continue my story, or do you plan on interrupting again? The disfavored needed recruits anticipation of the march south. They offered to care for my mother and brother as long as I stayed in the Legion, which is a better guarantee than you'll find anywhere else. I was an elite fighter as far as most were concerned, though still green by disfavored standards. Luckily for everyone, my skills improved under the Iron Marshal's righteous training. Tell me about your name. Barrack is a shortening of my northern surname, which has been passed down through the generations since Graven Ash assembled his armies. I go by it because I wear it with pride. The proper form is Barraconin. Beyond its age and association with the General's Legion, the name of Barraconin has no great titles or associations. I hold no claim to a great house or legacy save for the disfavored. They are all the kin I need. I already know the story with your armor. As with all the disfavored, I assume you grew up in the Northern Empire? That's right, I grew up in Battle's Rest, then trained at Fort Resolution, before they marched me out to support the second cohort. I hope to spend my rusting years in Fretton shores, unless of course I die in glorious battle, which would be preferable. My mother is good with soil, my father with rings. He spends much of his time away on one merchant's errand or another. Still, I'm lucky to say they're both alive. Lucky, but not always proud. When the war is over, I'm gonna have some very direct words about my father about his habits abroad. Let's speak of something else, as you like. Tell me about the disfavored. We are the Aryan Legion. The warrior elite of Kairos is fighting for us. I could easily lose count of the horrors extolling our glories. What is it you'd like to know? You fought in any notable battles? I served in Stalwart for the better part of a year, faced the enemies everywhere from Coral Run to Sentinel Stand. I lost count of the battles. Seems like we fought every other day. Some of our best victories took place there, fighting an enemy worthy of our iron, but we were not successful enough to please the Overlord, and the final intervention was harsh on us all. I had an unusual view of the Edict of Storms. Kairos' judgment left its mark on me, yet considering how we fought at Stalwart with the skill and honor of legend, only the Edict is remembered. A shame. Tell me about your time in the Legion. I joined the Legion 3 years before the conquest of the Tears began. Though handy with a weapon, my size made me a perfect addition to the phalanx. Excuse me. I've served with the stone shields ever since. Proud to say I've stood front row, right corner in a dozen battles. That's been my place since the Iron Marshal gave me the assignment. Bastard City, the Gates of Judgment, Vrendrian's Pass, Hawkins Ring, a quick tour of Barris and Change, and then Stalwart. I spent a long time in Stalwart, lost a lot of friends there. Why didn't the Legion prevent the uprising of Vendrian's Well? I think that's the question you ought to ask the car, of course. They too were charged with ensuring the locals remained vanquished and unarmed. Oof. If the Scarlet Chorus had conscripted more aggressively, perhaps there would not have been an uprising. Agreed. We have never relied upon the Scarlet Chorus to win victories, only to recruit in numbers and secure our holdings. They were asleep on the watch. The Veneer Guard should have been slaves to the chorus, not free men and women allowed to plot and conspire. So why is the Legion called the Disfavored? It is a name born in shame, and now worn in honor. After Graven Ash stood against Kairos, he was forced to give up much, his allegiance, his pride, and the name of his vaunted army. What was the Legion originally called? The name has been forgotten by all save Ash and Kairos, and it is considered bad form to bring up the topic. Since you didn't know any better, I'll say this much. Disfavored is the only name by which one needs to know us by. Let's speak of something else. What more can you tell me about the Legion? Disfavored accepts only the finest warriors. We are all volunteers and all soldiers by trade, not farmers or fishmongers pressed into service. There's a century of tradition, honor, and tactical mystery in our ranks. We don't just let anyone into the Legion. Only Northmen of character and prowess are welcome. What if a capable Tearsman wished to join? We would not recruit even a champion of the Tearsmen. Each soldier in the Legion is tied by blood and fealty to those that stood with Graven Ash during the coming of Kairos. That is who we are, and that will never change. Back to my previous questions. I have some questions about the Scarlet Chorus. The allies that were supposed to help us conquer the Tears, common criminals, every last one of them. What would you like to know? What do you know about the voices? The Archon of Secrets? All I know is rumor, hearsay, speculation, but that's pretty much anyone knows. Some accounts tell that he's actually dead, and the Overlord trapped the mind of his foes in the same body to torch them all. As likely an explanation as I heard as anyone. In truth, I know little of the voices, and I have reason to suspect almost anything about him could be true. You could tell me his tears turned cheese back into milk, and it would seem more sensible to you to believe you than not. What do you know of this Soki, the Archon Siren? A Siren is the Archon of Song and one of the youngest of her rank. She can influence human emotion with her voice alone. The voices may be the conductor of the chorus, but I'd argue the Siren is their best weapon. The voices put her talent to good use, and had her singing a song up and down the coast, and the tearsmen defected to the chorus in droves. I heard his tears can churn cheese in the milk. That's very amusing, Fayebinder. Do you think him disloyal? Yes, almost without question. You were there at the uprising at Vengeance, so the Scarecrow seemed intent on delaying the disfavor war efforts, no doubt hoping to keep us outside the well and the maw of Kairos' edict. Back to my previous questions, enough about the Scarlet Chorus.
Let's move on to another matter.
What can you tell me about the tears? Uphill both ways and full of dumb sods. I learned some history and training up in there. And I've been here for a few years, but I'm no expert. What is your assessment of the local forces? There was an early time in the war when I would have feared for the younger realms working together. Imagine that. Once I saw a modest scope of their defensive, I knew that they would be easily outclassed. They couldn't even rally their best to make a competent stand. Tell me about the Vendrian Guard. They used to be the Queen Royal's army, the Queen Royal Army of Vendrian. I guess defeat inclined them to a shorter name. We crushed them back in 429. I'm proud to say I took part in the decisive battle. You know the rest. A year after we thought them conquered, thousands of Vendrian Oathbreakers murdered the garrison and declared themselves free of the Overlord's rule. Tell me about the Unbroken. The Unbroken Union of Stalwart. May they rot in their decrepitude of their fallen realm. Much of it pains me to admit it. In all the realms of the tiers, the Unbroken have been the only worthy foe to meet the disfavored in battle. The Unbroken value tradition just as we do. Stalwart never lost a war on their own soil, a reputation they take quite seriously. It is fortunate that Stalwart has poor relations with all its neighbors. The rest of the tiers will not come to their aid, so as bravely as they fight, their end is inevitable. What can you tell me about the Bronze Brotherhood? Mercenaries from the free cities. The chorus needed extra muscle, and you can always mint new ranks. Hard to believe the Tearsmen turned on each other for mere loops of metal. The Bronze Brotherhood worshipped the Scourges, yes, those monsters from the old walls. The mercenaries are grown adults that willingly admire magical abominations. Read into that as you will. That said, it should surprise no one that the Bronze Brotherhood eventually wanted more than just rings, and turned on their contracts. Kairos now considered them an enemy, which is for the best. The Overlord needs a better class of combatants. Okay, we know the Vendrian Guard. Who are the Unbroken? The Unbroken Legion was the proud and accomplished army of the realm of Stalwart. Citing their victories as evidence of skill, they prided themselves on never facing a defeat while fighting on home soil. After the Edict of Storms tore apart Stalwart and twisted it into the Blade Grave. Barely a 20th of the Unbroken's former strength survived the war against Kairos' forces. And then the Bronze Brotherhood. The Bronze Brotherhood is a mercenary company from the free cities dotting the tier's southern coast. Many of these mercenary companies were employed by Kairos' agents and slaughtered during the war. The Bronze Brotherhood survived thanks to their relatively safe posting at Lethian's Crossing, with the Voices of Nerat hired the company to help protect the town's forge operation. Amongst the most trained and dedicated warriors of the tiers, the Bronze Brotherhood had a reputation for ruthlessness and tenacity. Aggression, decisiveness, decisive thinking are so highly prized by the Brotherhood that the violent, enigmatic Scourge is the group's mascot. A creature most decent folk consider the stuff of nightmares. The term brother is used for mercenaries of both genders, as the company's title harkens back to the archaic notion of living as men. In Tier's custom, this amounts to releasing all claims to land, to better assure an employer that the Brotherhood won't covet them realms they're paid to protect. Alright, back
Go
to my
on,
previous
Fatebinder.
questions. What do you know of the Younger Realms? Before we march on the Bastard Tier, I recall Graven Ash giving us a speech as we stood assembled at Fort Resolution. He told us the Younger Realms lack the sense to make a stand against us. I don't think I need to point out the average tierman is just plainly inferior to the sons and daughters of the North. For every one of ours they kill, we must drag a score and a half bleeding into the soil with us. It didn't help that they're afraid of magic and relied on their battlefield prowess to stage a defense. A regrettably apt observation, Barrack. My guild and I laughed out of Azure, Ardent, Stalwart, and Aachen each time we offered to fight for the tiers, and each time we were told our magic was unwelcome. What do you know of the Beastmen? They drilled us on Beastman combat before the invasion, but it did little to prepare us. The local savages are lacking in brain, hygiene, and ability to arm themselves, yet the prime hunters of their species are formidable, aside from being rapacious killers. The Beastmen made good haulers and laborers once you killed the half that wouldn't follow orders. Enough about the tiers. Seemed like more than a capable of fighters. I trained with a spear and shield in my youth, but gave it up the day I earned his favorite iron. I can still throw with some accuracy, but it is a challenge these days. Why are you interested in a sparring session? I heard that Graven Ash has an unbeatable sword fighting technique. You flattered the Legion's reputation, but the Archon makes sure we are competent swordsmen. Observe. The barrack takes up a sword and offers several practice jabs, testing its weight and balance. Before you know what to expect, the gleaming iron whips through the air fast enough for a sharp breeze to disturb the air. Barrack does this several more times, never showing any signs of exhaustion. What is on your mind? What do you think of our circumstances? The Ola will not stand for civil war between the Archons. I would like to think that Tunon would broker peace between the two, but there is too much hostility between Graven Ash and the voices of Nerat. We are not powerless to help the situation. We can try to find ways to stop the voices, or discredit him in the Overlord's eyes. If the voices were eliminated, the chorus would collapse and the infighting would cease. What are your thoughts on me and my deeds? Those who shirk the Overlord's laws adore you. And if I didn't know better, I would say you favor our enemies over our allies. Tunon must keep his Fatebinders on a very, very long leash. The disfavored loathe you. Each day I spend with you no doubt harms my standing in the Legion. I am bound not to kill you while you sleep, but know that I could likely win the Legion's favor with such a move. Any reservations I had aside, your military record speaks for itself. You are Tunon's Fatebinder, and my opinions on the matter do not come into one way or another. What do you think of our travel companions? I am more accustomed to traveling companions, traveling in the company of soldiers, so I am out of practice judging the worth of civilians and miscreants. If you had anyone in particular in mind, I'll give them thought. Lantry. I do not know how many years he has walked the face of Terratus, but he clearly knows more than he claims to. Since he claims to know a great deal indeed, there is no limit to what he could be holding back. What do you think about Verse? My sister, you mean? She is reckless, heartless, indecent, and bloodthirsty excuse of a woman who has no business serving under the banner of Kairos. But in spite of that, I am proud of her. She follows her passion and her dreams. She takes from life everything that she feels she deserves and more. I am a soldier through and through. I have never had the strength of her convictions. I serve my Archon and the needs of this war, but there is little enough of me outside of this armor. I cannot say the same for Verse. Verse glances towards your collection and smooths back her hair, acting as if she didn't listen to a word. What do you think about Eb? She's as opinionated and talented as she is vulgar. Much as we can disagree on the reasons behind this war, I have never found a more impressive example of a tiersman. I admit to finding her quite striking. Whenever she makes a jab at me or Kairos of the Legion, in spite of whatever I might say in my defense, I am pleased to have captured her interest. Come on, Barry. But I would not have her know my thoughts on the matter. She's a southern savage after all, and I a decorated soldier. No need to overcomplicate our feelings in time of war, Barrack. Let us speak of something else. Let's discuss immediate concerns. Let us speak to Barrack and Verse. Have you two noticed you fight particularly
The
well
thought
together?
has crossed my mind from time to time.
The big guy here is as useless as an empty scabbard without his phalanx to keep him alive, but I move fast enough to compensate for it.
I already think we did this
And it's
dialogue
nice
last
having a
time.
living-
I want you to
Absolutely
train.
not. Our fighting styles are incompatible, and any disfavored lieutenant will
I'm inclined to agree. If you want to pair up fighters, there has to be...
Oh. Damn it.
Yes, I
I
think.
can think of 100 reasons to refuse, but if this will serve the war effort, I can swallow my pride. Verse, if you even try to cut my head off, we're finished.
Yeah, so I think last time it didn't work because I hadn't talked to Barrick and got up his loyalty or fear or both. So here we are. They're gonna train
I
together.
make no promises. Tricky idea, Fatefinder. Old Ironclad and I might not stand each other, but maybe a few sparring sessions and a battle or two will be good for us. Barrick, shall we get started?
I got it. Salutations, Fatebinder. Or should I now call you Lady of Vendrian's Well? The Spire
Captain of the
Queen?
Avenging.
Princess of the suggestive vertical slab?
What a great character. Oh my lord. Archara will suffice. Fatebinder's fine. Captain of the Vendrian Guard seems suitable. Am I? I'm gonna say that Captain of the Vendrian Guard seems suitable.
Yes. Welcome once again to our... Well, in light of your intervention, I can't rightly refer to ourselves as a lost cause. Oh, thanks, Fatebinder. Now how am I gonna get off on righteous indignation? So if I might ask, what is your plan now? The edict no longer looms overhead, and Kairos' conquest of the Tiers seems to be slipping, what with the armies in civil war. Kairos' armies made short work of the Tiers. There's still plenty of anti-Kairos sentiment, but not a lot of folks with any fight left in them. But we have a few options. The classic option for a land war in the Tiers is hiring Free City's mercenaries. Most of them were slain in the war, but the Bronze Brotherhood is still alive and strutting. They're stationed in Lethian's Crossing. The idea I was pitching to the Vendrian Guard. Let's arm every Beastman tribe that'll join us. The Stone Sea is home to a bevy of tribes that were freed during the war, and neither the Chorus nor the Disfavored can seem to tame them. If we really want to hate ourselves in the morning, Stalwart is pretty famous for not helping their neighbors, but also famous for being relentless at war. The Disfavored have their leadership surrounded, but the people in the storm-blasted countryside are still fighting. And while I don't endorse this, I must list all the options. The School of Ink and Quill. I'm sure there's some logic to working with them, just like there's some logic in cutting off your own head to prevent all future headaches.
That's all I need to know. First order of business, I should speak to Tunon.
I would counsel you to do just that. I'm sure the events of Vendrian's Well are best explained from your mouth to Tunon's ears. Furthermore, I'd guess the Archon of Justice would want to know your take on the Archons and their divide.
That's all I have for now.
Short of Tunon giving you orders on pain of death, you have the luxury of acting on your own volition. Though the Disfavored are likely to come for you. Whatever you decide, I'm at your disposal.
Your assistance will be most helpful.
And I am thankful to not be a bloody pile of offal in Vendrian's Well. Life under your banner will, I'm sure, prove most interesting.
Have a moment, let's speak further.
What is it you need?
Yeah, we should discuss matters
Still
at
amazed we
hand.
survived the Edict of Execution. The Chorus may outnumber us, and the Disfavored seem to grow more aggressive every passing span. We've endured our neap days. The struggle now turns in our favor.
I need more allies. Amongst the Tiers,
The
Marcelo.
classic option for a land war in the
Oh, okay, we already did
the
that.
idea. There's also and while I don't endorse this, I must ask away.
Let's speak of
You know,
magic.
I normally charge for this, but for you...
What can you tell me about your magical traditions?
Now, you know that's a very personal question. The knowledge I have is a centuries-old gift from the Archon of Tides. I would sooner discard my life than the sanctity of that gift. I will speak in generalities only.
Asked, worst I cannot tell. Tell me about how you influenced Tarada's grave. Trade secret. No one I'm gonna talk to, but the school ties with me, and so too will this. Do not bother trying to change my mind on this matter, it'll just get ugly quick. Tell me how you influence ice, mist, and other forms of water. With years of training, now look, most of these secrets have already been stolen ages ago by the sages. Doesn't mean I'm going to tell you just because the secret's already out, but it means you can go ask someone else if you really feel so entitled to know. And before you ask, I've learned plenty from the knowledge stolen by the sages, but no, I don't know how to do what Ebb does, magically or otherwise. Can you teach me what you know? I suppose I am capable of it, but no, the secrets of Archon of Tides dies with me. What are the philosophical teachings of your magic? There is a question I can answer. It would surprise you to learn that we see all things. People, wars, seasons to be cyclical, waxing and waning through their various forms like tides and the lights of Tarada's grave. Taratus is the planet that Taratus. The planet has 2 satellites visible by the naked eye. The tides locked, Taratus grave, and the rapidly orbiting interloper. Scholars have long studied the effects of these 2 moons on the ocean currents, and a great deal of folklore concerns the origins of the moons. A common belief in Kairos Empire is that Taratus' grave will finally set on the horizon when Kairos' rule ends, whereas those of the Tiers insist the moons are older than the old walls and will outlive even Kairos. The mind is limited. We are born and spend our lives dodging death. We expect all stories to have a beginning and end. We assume all things start and stop just like us. In truth, all things are a cycle. Some by matter of minutes, other by matters of years or lifetimes. In the School of Tides, we appreciate patterns of all sorts. Most are called to the depths. Others find their interest skybound. Many still find the tides of human emotion and political fortunes far more intriguing than inanimate tides found in the orbits and oceans. From what Archon do the Tidecasters draw upon for their magic? The first Tidecasters were given the gift of magic by our school's founder, Occulted Jade, Archon of Tides. Occulted Jade, Archon of Tides, is the founder of the School of Tides as well as its only ruler. She wore the title Archon. Though she wore the title Archon, Occulted Jade never bowed to Kairos, though many have tried to compel her to do so. Having arrived at the settlers that made landfall at 5 Wives, she is perhaps the oldest known living Tiersman, capable of manipulating oceans, the moon, and all the transitory forms of water. Occulted Jade used her magic to form a cabal of seafaring traders, musicians, and academicians, and it was dedicated to the arts that help the school endure. By teaching these trades to children of noble families, the school are made in good graces of the realm. Being able to control most anything cyclical or fluid, Occulted Jade has lived for centuries and could still be alive today, but none know with certainty. In the years before the conquest, the School of Tides discovered the Overlord's plan to invade, despite all assumptions that the Tiers' resident Archon would defend her school and home. To the surprise of everyone, the Archon vanished across the seas, taking nearly the entire School of Tides with her into exile across uncharted waters. Bro, she just left her at what? Though she was not of Kairos' ilk, she was as powerful as any Archon, and from her name and legacy we can mimic the moon's pull on the seas and change currents. Okay. And it's from her that we have spells to turn the moon's pleasant hues into baleful ray of searing grave light. Grave light is the magical term for the light of the moon, Tarada's grave. Specifically when harnessed and manipulated for nefarious purposes. While the moon's rays are normally incapable of causing so much as a mild sunburn, the Tidecasters have long studied magic that can concentrate these rays into bolts and beams of searing doom. The Tidecasters have spent centuries trying to mimic the control of the moon's tidal pulls on the oceans and will often mention that diverting moonlight is the easy stuff compared to pulling and pushing the tides. But modern times have forced the school of tides to concentrate on more martial applications of this magic. In all these years, I have not grown tired of the thrill of power. It's a rush of carnal humors every time. Guessing you can tell me more than I ever wanted to know on moons. You'd be right, my magic is generally associated with the moon Terratus grave. But you have to know where Interloper is in the sky when mucking about with mystical forces. Do you control water, or do you mimic tidal effects? Both, actually. I'm amused you're keen on the difference. Our spells of ice and mist affect water directly, but are of limited volume. Displacing your own body weight in water is no mean feat, but if we were to move an ocean current, I'd drive myself nuts moving water in front of a boat, a little at a time. That's where I'd use a cantrip to simulate a tidal pull. Interloper's the one that moves in the sky, if I remember the lessons correctly. Exactly. Interloper orbits Terratus at a steady clip, and its orbit sometimes crosses in front of Terratus' grave, leading to a mystical calamity if you don't know what you're doing. Terratus' grave is the big one, right? Tell me more. Terra's grave is fixed in the sky. It's always overhead day and night. It was the first named by folks living far to the east. They'd look to the west and see the moon like a permanent hill on the horizon, a grave where the sun dies each morning. That's how the older folks saw it. If you live in the western part of the world, Terra's grave is overhead at all times. That means day and night, it's reflecting the sun's rays, and if you know what you're doing, it doesn't just reflect, it magnifies. Let's talk about other things. Have you heard anything from the tidecasters that left before the war? No, and I don't like entertaining the hope. Those cowards are all gone. If they didn't die at sea, they are dead to me. I reserve the right to be pleasantly surprised if they come back, eager to fight the good fight, but I'm not holding my breath. All the brave tidecasters died, present company accepted. Fine, we can talk about other arcane matters.
I normally charge for this, but for you...
Do you know anything of the magic of the Archons? Enough to know I'm out of my element. That is to say, I've studied many Archons a great deal, and I have a number of hypotheses and conjectures, but well, I'm no expert. And like most who have invoked the Archons of time past to work magic, I do wonder what difference of birth or experiences gives one of the magical potential to be an Archon. Most of my studies have been into the question of origins of form. It's known we can emulate the magic of Archons that came before us, but is it possible to tap into the magic of the Archons yet to be? So far the answer seems to be no. Know anything about old walls in the Spire?
Ask away.
Oop.
I normally charge...
No, not enough. Never enough. As a child, I was terrified of the old walls. I think that's true of most folk. Now that I can arc grave light with a wiggle of my fingers, well, I think when I'm shriveled and old hag, dying in the old walls will be a great way of going. What can you tell me of the Bane? What I know is largely taken from Master Cambriel's work, and some near-fatal experiences venturing close to the old walls. As I best understand it, the Banes are bits of magical will that have extended life of their own. I'm of the belief that they nest in or reproduce in old walls, the only place you regularly find them. Our magic attracts the Bane. That much is I know to be true firsthand. Again, this is personal theory, but I'm guessing they eat or drink magic, so our spells are invitations to dine. Tell me about yourself. Tell me about your name. Well, I was born Hazen Lavenja, but for most of my life, and I suppose for all the days after, I'm known and will be known as Ebb, Tidecaster Ebb for those trying to be obsequious. I've also used a bunch of aliases that are going to haunt me at some point. Hazen, didn't realize you were nobility. I know, I dress myself and cook my own food, so misleading. My mother was Magistrate of Ardent, my father was Admiralty. It's mostly meaningless though. Our lands are now the Overlords. How'd you get the nickname? It's one of those not especially funny jokes that stuck long past its season. I wrote the word Ebb incorrectly on a written examination. Master Fulvik started calling me Ebb from then on. He claimed it fit me. It was a cynical little shit that always sees the ebb, never flow. Oh my lord. What would you like to know? Did you always want to be a tidecaster? So when I was a little girl, I really wanted to was a marine. The burly bitch at the prow of the trireme. First to crack some skulls when the ships rammed. You know, an honest living. Fortunately, the school sought me out before I got myself killed at sea. The School of Tides was looking for new blood, and my father was the Admiral of Haven, so the school wanted me for the political connections. I got to spend my first couple years proving I actually belong with the Tidecasters. That was fun. What would you like to know? What did you do in years before the war? My husband was born in Apex, and he left prosperous lands to be with me. So when the nest was empty, it seemed right we leave my homeland and see his side of the tears. We had a year and a bit to ourselves before the war upturned things. We saw all of Apex. I took him along my old sailing routes around Five Wives and Sunder. Those were good times. Then came the war, and I learned I would be one of the last tiersmen to live free of Kairos. Ever since then, I think Oathbreaker has technically been my chosen profession. What would you like to know? Tell me about your family. Trying to salt old wounds, they're all gone, but if you really care to know, I had a husband, 3 kids, siblings I didn't hate. Every family has its troubles. I was lucky that awkward and stilted dinner was the worst of it. Tell me about your husband. Palox Aldenus and I were married in 410. Aldenix was a foulman of the Vendrian Guard back before they were starving partisans, but I saw him more as a carpenter. Woodworking was just a hobby of his, but my fondest memories are him trying to shape something and making stupid jokes of the firmness of his material. What became of him? He perished at the gates of judgment. I saw him die. I do not wish to discuss it. I've made peace with it, and I'm glad I was with him on the field of battle when his time came. I miss him, but it might be for the best. Though he was only a few years older than me, my studies left me always a bit younger than him. The Griffins is due with time. Aldonius was slowing down and half figured the Gates of Judgment would be his last battle. If anything, he got exactly the death he wanted. So in a sense, I'm very happy for him. What about your children? There were the twins, Revenor and Lamorma, then my youngest son, Akamis, and Aldonus wanted more, but I was nearing the end of my trials at the School of Tides and dueling with lethal magic. It was a terrible idea when with a child. Drevenor and Lorma followed my husband straight and took to the foul. Akamis liked the heart more than people. I can't blame him one bit. I made sure my children could read, and I'm damn proud of the fact. Probably the only thing I did right. What of the twins? They died at the gates of judgment, or at least Drevenor did, run through by a disfavored spear. Lorma was at the battle. I don't know what became of her. My fear was she was recruited by the Scarlet Chorus. Perhaps she has a new name, if she is still alive. There were the twins, Drevenor and Lorma. Then what became of the youngest? With Drevenor and Lorma Akmis, he took his own life. I should have put him on a trireme and shoved him out onto the high seas. He did not ask for birth, nor did I prepare him for the bitterness that life would offer. I'm sorry for your loss. Spare me the sorrow. We've all lost families with Krythos. I just lost 2 in one battle. But even then, it's hardly unique. Let's change the subject. For the rest of your family. My family's Haven's folk. Through and through, my mother prided herself on being a descendant of Hazen Robin, one of the founding magistrates of the city of Orden. Sad thing is, he died during the conquest. But that's how I lost contact. I lost contact because magic and travel became my life. I had plenty of time to get to know them as an adult, but I simply missed it. But that one's my fault. I can't rightly blame Krythos for everything. Let's change the subject. How'd you fall with a Fendrian guard? Times past, folks of Apex would run us out of town if they saw 2 or more Tidecasters congregating. But war makes strange bedfellows. To the Vendrian Guard's credit, they knew that they had their eye on their neighbors, and I only wish more of us joined their cause sooner. It's to my shame that many of my peers were cowards. If the whole school had met the enemy as a unified force, best not to overthink it. Why were the Tidecasters reluctant to fight? Too much navel gazing, not enough vitriol. Or that's my guess. A century of relative peace and calm meant we had become a guild of too many musicians and poets. Let's change the subject.
Ask away.
I have questions about the people of the Tears.
We all know how to swim, and we all know how to fight. Most Northmen are lucky to make half that boast. What would you like to know?
Curious about the people of the Tears. I think you'll find each of us thinks of themselves as a child of Haven, as in my case. Or a child of Azure, a child of Apex, or what have you. But I suppose we Tearsmen have our shared customs. The most treasured of those customs used to be the pride of being free of Kairos' rule. Do you have any particular questions? When were the Tears settled? Human settlers arrived over 400 years ago, displaced from a war between what are now Kairos' realm of Trevin and Fertile Sands, a flotilla. A flotilla of barely seaworthy rigs headed west across the sea. The Tearsmen will sometimes speak of the 5 wives. We use it to refer to the first 5 settlements where the colonists made landfall, as well as to the 5 matriarchs that went on to form the ruling dynasties of Tears. The Tears. Of course, I'm leaving out the matter of the builder of the old walls. Who knows when they lived here and why they're gone, but those old walls didn't just fall out of the sky. Why didn't men own land or women ships? For centuries, it had been our ways that the men own the ships and the women own the harbors. Our customs don't truly prevent ownership, they limit inheritance. Lands pass to daughters and sisters, then mothers and aunts. Ships pass to sons, then brothers, then fathers and uncles. It seems strange to outsiders, but makes sense to me. Men are blessed with wanderlust, women with a sense of the permanent. Likewise, the captain of a ship can't pause to carry a child. The men grow restless if left in place. In truth, customs vary place to place. You find men with enough wealth to own land, and women with enough to sway own ships. As is often the case, the nobles pick and choose their traditions. Why didn't the younger realms stand united against Kairos? Are you trying to rub it in? Yes, the young realms were defeated one at a time by the invaders. Maybe if I was Queen of the Tears, that wouldn't have happened. I genuinely want to know your thoughts on the matter. You're being defensive over nothing. Opportunity, that's what killed us. Haven wanted to watch the bastard tier fall first. Apex was hoping Haven would fall. Azure wanted Stalwart to be attacked first. Every realm of the tiers had some interest in watching their neighbors fall first. So we all held back our support until a year or so into the war. Too fucking late by then, squabbling intimates. Tearsmen live with greater numbers of beastmen. What's that like? The beastmen of the tiers are hardier and smarter than their kin elsewhere. And unfortunately, we live long enough. We lived together in relative harmony for some time. Make no mistake, life is difficult for most beastmen in the tiers, but compared to say how they are treated in the Northern Empire, I would like to think we Tearsmen are a bit more modern and forward-thinking, even if just a bit. But I suppose I take an overly optimistic view of our beastly cousins. I find their clumsy honesty endearing. While no human will say nice things about my cooking, no beastman has ever said anything mean about my worst dishes. What are the major resistors to Kairos' rule?
Kairos made swift work of the tiers, destroying most of the great armies of the younger realms in a few short years of war. Of course, queens can be bowed, captains slain, but we are a proud people. I think Kairos will find the stubborn remnants of the tiers hard to eradicate completely. Was there a particular group you wish to discuss?
The Unbroken. Tell me about the Unbroken.
The Unbroken is the name of the military of the now fallen realm of Stalwart. Every citizen of Stalwart was trained to fight, and all were expected to answer the rallying cry of the Regents, the ruling small council of the realm. A decade ago, Stalwart was the ass end of jokes Tearsmen would tell each other. The people of Stalwart are obnoxiously proud of a long history of being invaded, but never losing. The disfavored put an end to their vaunted record of victory.
Sorry about that. Holy shit. Alright, I'm back. Sorry, an alarm went off, and yeah. A decade ago, Stalwart was the ass end of jokes Tearsmen tell each other. The people of Stalwart are obnoxiously proud of a long history of being invaded but never lose, and they would put an end to their vaunted record of
The Unbroken
victory.
still persist, albeit marginally so. The disfavored withdrew after the Edict of Storms began shredding the landscape. Their holdfast of Sentinel Stand Keep was never taken, and the citizen army, though scattered, could still be rallied.
Tell me about the Stone Stalker tribe.
Kairos' war was disastrous to the human realm of Azure, but a stroke of good luck for the numerous beastmen that toiled in Azure's endless wheat fields. With the masters all dead, the serfs have been set free. The Stone Stalkers are a tribe born from these newly freed beasts. I imagine they would never bow to Kairos or the Archons. Too many generations have been enslaved. I'd wager anything they'll die before they ever bow. Beastmen understand strength and leadership, but it's always in the concrete sense. I can't pretend to know how they think, but I could never imagine them accepting an absent Prima. A distant ruler they can't see or smell seems a bit too abstract.
Tell me about the Bronze Brotherhood.
The Bronze Brotherhood is one of the most feared and famous of the Free City mercenary companies. They serve the highest bidder, and during the war, that was Kairos. Most of the Brotherhood perished in the war, but a handful, the crew hired to work at Lethian's Crossing. They got to babysit the Forge-bound and survived the last few years with minor losses. The band is too small to be a serious threat to the disfavored or the chorus, but they are scourge-worshipping berserks that will adopt any enemy for the right price. Maybe even Kairos.
Are there any other remnants of the Younger Realm that could still rise against Kairos?
Several sages came to our aid during the Second Battle of Vendrian's Well. I at first thought they meant to kill me, but instead they put their lives on the line for us. They spoke of others in their guild braving the Edict of Fire to salvage lore from the burning library. Though I may find them untrustworthy, it must be said that the sages have a certain fearlessness toward the Overlord. Perhaps that could be kindled further.
Having been part of the surrender faction within the school, I'd concur with that point. I thought the Edict of Fire would finally kill their defiant streak. But no, the sages still refuse to bow. We can and should mind their passion.
Historically speaking, an alliance with the School of Ink and Quill is just asking to have your efforts stolen and your goals undermined. Mark my words, some things never change.
Think of the sages as a resource in a sense. We are fools not to use them.
Well, perhaps we can shove them in front of the enemy. And the ones that volunteered at Vendrian's Well weren't all bad.
Let's change the subject. Can you tell me about the different nations of the tiers? Before Kairos came, the tiers were the Younger Realms, the Bastard tier, and the Free City. And about that order of prominence, we trace all our roots back to the Five Wives, though a bit of the ancestral storyline seems all we have in common. Tell me about the Younger Realms. Haven, Azure, Apex, SWTOR have been the four major forces of the tiers for the last 4 centuries. A few other dynasties have tried their hand, but all were eventually defeated and absorbed in the four we know today. Not sure what the term younger came in the fashion, but it's always been a humble contrast. Just look at the old walls. Someone was here before us and built them. I don't really know anything about them, but it stands as reason there used to be an older realms that did all this constructing. Before Kairos came, the tiers were the Younger Realms, the Bastard tier, and oh, okay, that's it. Tell me about the Bastard tier. It's the northmost of the tiers, the choke point of the Northern Empire. It's been a hub of trade for centuries, and a long line of merchants and families and private armies have kept the realm largely lawless. Though many used to joke the Bastard City being sacked by rabid dogs, Tunon's capture was a terrible blow to morale for the tiersmen. We know that day Kairos was just more than a fun story to scare your kids. Before Kairos... What can you tell me about the Free Cities? There's little free about the Free Cities save their independence from the Younger Realms. They're not physically adjacent, but rather politically allied by their shared hatred of the other realms. Most of all, the Free City was defeated with little effort by Kairos' forces. The way I heard it, their archers had to give agents higher up their mercenaries and order them to simply be elsewhere when the army of the overlords arrived. Before Kairos came, the tiers were the Younger. Oh, yep. Shane, what can you tell me of the Archon and the tiers?
Not entirely sure. Which is to say, there was a time I studied my enemy in great detail, but I've recently come to learn that much of my information was little more than lies and misdirection.
What a voice is Nara. The Archon of Secrets lived up to his name. If he weren't so loathsome a beast, I'd half admire his mastery of the magical arts. Say he knows all of the sigils lost to history, but I heard it said that all all that stolen knowledge is why he speaks in different voices. But in truth, I'm learning that most of what I know is just lies and misdirections, though I guess he'd be a poor Archon of Secrets if I had my facts straight. What about Graven Ash? Before the conquest, I assumed Graven Ash, an armless old man, an Archon in name only past his prime. I could have not been more wrong. Many have underestimated the great general by his age. Few of them have made the same mistake twice. Ash is a remarkable general. He's led his tiny band of disfavored on a nearly unstoppable rampage of the tears. And he does not seem to win his wars with obvious display of mystic powers, but old-fashioned leadership of good soldiers. A year or so under the blue flag talk with a commander, I was told that the Archon knows the name of every soldier under his command, living and dead. The way the disfavored speak of Ash, do you think he praised each of them from the cradle? Know anything of Karn? Enough. Why the hostility? The Archon is so destroyed much that I hold dear. I'm glad that he's dead. What more than I need to say? What do you know of Siren? I'm sure there may be younger Archons in the historical records, but Siren is certainly an unusually powerful child. I'd say half of the Scarlet Chorus was recruited by Siren's passive, persuasive songs. And I'd not doubt it. I also know the voices put a shackle on her power, probably feared she'd become the favorite of the rabble. Let's change the subject. What do you know of Arcane Society?
I know a great deal of the mages of the Tiers, or at least their history. Most are dead now. I know a little less about the guilds sworn to Kairos as Archons, but I try to make an effort to know my opposition.
Tell me about the Earthshakers. The Earthshakers are the disciples of Karn, Archon of Stone. They share their master's command of tremors and soil. They also share Karn's aloof, brooding temperament. From what I gather, the Earthshakers serve the disfavored, but the relationship could be deeply strained by Karn's fall from grace. I can imagine there's fear Karn shared with them some subversive or treasonous. Something subversive or treasonous. Tell me about the Blood Chanters. The Blood Chanters are the voices of Nerod's cabal of mages. Their magic is taken from the sigil of Siren, and from techniques stolen from the School of Wild Wrath, namely their magic of fire is learned from Thousand Emperors Archon of Fire. They barely qualify as a proper school or guild. Most of them barely literate, and I bet most of them didn't learn a damn thing, just had their knowledge shoved in their heads by Nerot. They're all the brutal buffoonery of the chorus, but with the magic to make them bloodlust contagious. Their only redeeming feature, guess they make the sages seem not half bad. What can you tell me about the Forgebound? The Forgebound? Let's read what the Forgebound are. Forgebound are magesmiths sworn to Kairos' service. Though their operation in the Tyrans are overseen by Tunon and his court of Fatebinders, each Forgebound uses magic as tools to augment their personal craft, most commonly smelting and metalworking, but carpenters, tailors, and tanners are found in the ranks, and each mage strives to create that which is impossible with mundane hands. Most notably, the Forgebound are the sole masters of ironworking in the known world, using spells of fire resistance to wade into the forge fires. The Forgebound can work iron at temperature no other forge can match, and with hands-on touch that no mundane smith could hope to achieve. Because of this vital skill, the Forgebound are considered a strategic asset, their lives regimented and controlled so that the forges may churn out iron arms and armor without delay, or distraction. So, the Forgebound have an unusual sort of magic. They specialize in slow, painstaking rituals that do not produce the dazzling blasts of energies and shards of flying ice like my own magic. Instead, their spells render them immune to the fires of the forge and one with their tools of the trade. I admit a bit of a fascination with the guild. I prefer the power and brutality of my own magic, but if I lived in a calmer, wiser time, I think there could be great satisfaction in using magic to become a master of one's craft. Tell me about the School of Ink and Quill. Behind the Tidecasters, the sages of the School of Ink and Quill are second oldest arcane institution in the Tiers. We go way back a ways. There's a lot of bad blood. From being objective, the sages claim to be scholars interested in collecting, archiving, and preserving lore from and for all humanity. They're quite clean to gather war, but in no sense do they seek to share their knowledge with their Tiersmen. Many of our secrets have been pilfered by sage spies over the centuries, and we're not alone. The sages have secrets of many other guilds. Their generations of theft have made them versatile and dangerous. Tell me about your own school, School Tides. A patron, a culture is as old as Settlers' 5 wives, and for nearly 5 centuries, we are masters of the coasts and rivers these days. It is a school of one you're looking at. Why didn't your Archon fight in the war? About a year or so before the troops arrived in the Basseteer, a culted Jade proclaimed the age of the Tears was over, and she said, depart southwest into unknown, unending ocean rather than face Kairos. Most of my guildmates went along, choosing to risk endless high seas rather than risk battle. A few of us, the militants, as our peaceful brethren dubbed us, chose to stand and fight. To my knowledge, I'm the last of those who decided to stay and fight. What other magical schools and guilds of the Tears? There have been several to crop up and wither over the centuries. The Cutters Guild took their healing magic north centuries ago. The School of Flowering Winter always limped along as an inconsequential group of gardeners. Most other schools in the Tears fizzled out early, slain by suspicious neighbors or subverted and destroyed by one of the 3 big schools. I'll change the subject.
Ask away.
I'd like to ask you about our travel companions. What do you think of
My one
Barrick?
concern with Barrick is that he's still loyal to Graven Ash and not to you. Barrick seems steadfast, faithful, and dependable. But if it comes down to you versus Graven Ash, therein lies the test.
If it weren't a tactical asset, it'd be fun to try and pry him out of that suit. Curious to see if the midsection is as strong and firm as taught as I imagine it should be. Thoughts on
We should
Burst?
consider ourselves fortunate that one of the most deadly members of the Scarlet Furies considers you a suitable gang leader. That said, I think her involvement with you is entirely suspect. I would wager good money the voices of Neratis listening through her, or perhaps seeing what she sees.
I see. Tell me about Lantry.
Probably the only word thief I haven't wanted to dismember. Him, I'd merely flay with an ice knife.
The Wandering Scholar thing seems an act. It's always an act with the sages, always pretending to know less than they really do. I'm sure he's got thousands of reasons for why he's not like them or trustworthy, blah blah, but I know his type, so I don't trust him. Oh, that's high praise coming from you. I'm going to take this stab and repeatedly jam it into your backside until you prolapse. Just like that, balance is restored to all known existence. You had me worried there. Let's change the subject.
What is it you...
I think that's it for her, and so let's talk to Lantry.